Hi everyone, and welcome to the SOA Candidate Town Hall. We'll be discussing the response of our education teams to the challenges brought about by COVID-19. I'm Beth Gall, SOA Candidate Relations Specialist, and I'll be your moderator for today's Town Hall. This Town Hall is being recorded and will be made available after the event on the SOA COVID-19 webpage. Thanks to many of you who sent questions in advance. If you would like to ask a question of the presenters during the Town Hall, you can enter those in the box marked question/chat on the right. Following introductions and a short presentation, we will move to your questions for the balance of the Town Hall. After the Town Hall, you will receive a short feedback survey to your registration email. Please take a minute to complete and thank you in advance. It's now my privilege to introduce the chair of the SOA's Education Executive Group and FSA, Jill Carpenter.
Hi everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I hope you're all staying safe and healthy, and I hope that by hosting this town hall, we can keep you informed and supported while you continue on your path to becoming an actuary. The COVID-19 pandemic is a fluid situation, one that requires us all to constantly assess information and data. The SOA education team has been communicating with members, candidates, employers, volunteers, and Prometric almost daily, and we're continually updating exam information on the SOA COVID-19 page to address your questions and concerns. If we don't get to your questions today, we will be updating the FAQ page with additional information. Joining me today is Stuart Klugman. Stuart is a senior staff fellow in the SOA's education department, a position he has held since 2009. For the previous 35 years, he was a professor of actuarial science at the University of Iowa and Drake University. He served 2 terms on the SOA board, has authored or edited 4 textbooks, written numerous research papers, and is a 2-time recipient of the SOA's Presidential Award. Welcome, Stuart.
Thanks, Jill. And echo the response. Hope you're all doing well, and welcome to you from my home office in beautiful St. Charles, Illinois. Now, I know some of you may have listened in to the member town hall last week, so you've heard some of this information before, but as noted, this is a rapidly changing arena we're operating in, and so there will be some new things we'll be talking about today that were not mentioned at that town hall. So I'm going to start with a brief overview of the topics I'll be covering in my presentation, and then we'll go through them in a little more detail in a moment. We'll talk about the postponement of the spring exams to July of this year. We announced just last week that they will be offering remote learning solutions for our APC and FAC professionalism courses. We've modified the VEE requirements for spring and summer university courses. And we're doing what we can to help candidates get seats, particularly for their Prometric administered examinations. We've extended testing windows, running a special administration, added an extra day to the PA assessment, and are working hard to have other expansions, such as a 3rd time slot each day at some Prometric centers. So with that in mind, I'm gonna advance my slide and move some of my papers aside here. So with regard to Prometric and the CBT exams, as you know, most of the preliminary exams are offered through Prometric testing centers using their computer-based testing facility. They closed their North American centers in mid-March and have now reopened several US centers as of May 1st, and some of the key Canadian centers will be opening earlier in this month. We also resumed testing in locations in China on April 20th. It's also mentioned we have extended testing windows for CBT exams, adding up to 5 days each. You will see those dates only when you go to Prometric to schedule. So let me repeat that. The expanded dates will be seen as available to you when you go to a Prometric website to actually schedule your appointment. As long as you've put in the correct exam, you can choose any of the available dates that will be shown to you. As you see on the slide, The exam extensions are for the May exams of PFM, SRM, and GI Intro, June exams, FM and STAM, and as mentioned, 1 extra day of testing for the predictive analytics exam. And finally, July exams, P and IFM. Some more on Prometric. Some of the things they've had to do to accommodate our situation is they will be keeping an open seat between you and the next test taker. So only at most half of the testing stations in a given Prometric center will be open at any time. So this will be cutting available seats by at least half. This will be necessary to provide appropriate physical distancing in accordance with applicable local guidelines. Even though we've added some dates, these guidelines mean some of you may have received a notice that your seat or registration has been canceled. If this happens, you should call Prometric, use their website to reschedule, and it may end up having you select a different and unfortunately less convenient testing center. I would also encourage you to be vigilant. If at first you do not find an available seat, keep trying. Cancellations and fluctuations happen, and so seats can show up from time to time. For future exams, to help candidates register in advance, we are opening registration in the next few weeks for those CBT exams scheduled through October of 2020. Finally, we continue to work closely with Prometric to make sure our candidates are given some priority for test center seats. But please keep in mind, they serve many other professional certification organizations in their exams, and they're all putting the same pressure on Prometric to provide seats. With regard to the spring written answer exams, as you know, the exams originally scheduled to take place in April have been postponed in July. If you've not yet registered, a short registration window will be open May 19 to 26. If you have registered, your registration is automatically transferred to the new dates, or you can obtain a refund or credit voucher by contacting the SOA. Some of the testing centers may be different. We contract each session with various sources to provide testing spaces for us, and we've needed to reestablish those centers for July. So your center may be different this time than what you've been to in the past or where you thought you might have been going had the exam been given in April. We expect to have the new center locations available around June 22nd. And we must understand that things can change, and if conditions do not allow us to move forward with the July exams, we plan to make that decision in mid-June. Let's see. And a couple other timing issues on the slide. We plan to release grades for those exams on the 18th of September, and then there'll be 10 days remaining for registration for fall 2020 exams. Let me move on to the VEE change. We learned that many universities are either mandating or giving students the opportunity to choose pass-fail grading rather than a traditional letter grade. So we have modified the VEE rules for only the spring and summer 2020 semesters. Students who take a class on a pass-fail basis or earn a grade of C or better in exam giving grades can apply that to earning VEE credit. But let me repeat again, that is only available for courses taken spring and summer 2020 semesters. Next up, remote options for APC and FAC. We've had to cancel some of these because obviously people were unable to travel and we were unable to host candidates who wanted to complete these important requirements to earn their memberships and designation. So we will be introducing remote options for both of them: online e-learning, use of virtual meetings, and dates on the screen. FAC remote components available beginning June 29, and the APC remote components will be available on August 31. And I will respond to one question that I've seen. Is registration for August CBT Prometric exams open already? And the answer is the August FM and GIINT exams will open for registration around the middle of next week. And that is actually the end of my prepared slides. I know I went through that fairly quickly. I also suspect much of that is information you have already seen on our website. And this will allow us plenty of opportunity now to take your questions. So back to you, Beth, to start the question period.
Thanks, Stuart. If you would like to ask a question of the presenters during the town hall, you can enter those in the box marked question/chat on the right. So let's get started right away. What if most test centers are still in the zone of heavy COVID-19 areas by July for the written answer exams? Would there be a further postponement?
It would be unlikely that that would be the case. We're going to do our best and working very hard to set up test centers for July, and we are still optimistic that that will happen. But to reschedule those exams once again and still have an opportunity to do those before we conduct our October exams would seem to be very difficult. Obviously, again, we're not going to close off any options. Our ultimate goal in all cases is to get as many candidates to be able to take the exam they've been studying for, to do it under the exam conditions you expect to take exams under, with a high level of security and proctoring. We'll continue to try to make that happen every case we can. And so again, if circumstances require something to change for July, we'll obviously have to, we'll only at that time know what those circumstances are and what further options are going to be available to us.
Great, Stuart. This is kind of related to that. Is the SOA considering expanding the number of testing centers for paper and pencil exams for July, such as would a company with a credentialed FSA be able to administer the exams for their own employees?
The answer is yes. We're still working on working through establishing exam centers, and it's actually always been the case that employers have been able to, excuse me, been able to host exams for us as in our regular testing process. So yes, we're still remaining flexible, still establishing locations for test centers for July, and welcome any inquiries, I would think, from those who might want to host one of our exams at that time.
Wonderful. This was a question that came through from candidate@soa.org earlier this week. Some of the Prometric testing sites are closed while some are open for essential testing only. Has the SOA received a list of the essential tests being offered, and will they be publishing it? Or will the SOA be announcing the cancellation of the computer-based tests?
Okay, so an important distinction to make here, Beth. Essential testing applies to all SOA exams. So it's not that some SOA exams have been viewed as essential and others have not. We are classified as an essential services program by the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. So all exams will continue to be administered as possible. So no exams will be canceled in the sense that we're not doing it all. The challenge that we are facing, of course, is that at any given country, any given state, any given city, there will be local regulations and restrictions that have to be applied to Prometric centers. They will be open wherever they can and giving tests wherever they can. And of course, if they can't offer tests, as they were not offering them in the US in April, that will be the case. But the exams themselves don't get canceled. It's just the ability of Prometric to offer those exams at specific locations.
Wonderful.
And
This
you
is
know,
also,
Beth, before you go on, I think I may have misinterpreted a question you asked earlier.
oh, sure.
And they sort of tie together. I was referring to the July exams, that written answer exams we've scheduled, and what options will be. But I think your question may have all been about Prometric exams as well. And again, I think the answer I gave to the second question pretty much sums that up. Well, you know, we use Prometric centers. We have to abide by the policies they set. They have to abide by the policies the local regulators set for them to operate in. And in general, we will need to they will need to move to the next scheduled administration if the one they've signed up for is not available to them. Okay, go ahead, Beth.
Sure. So this is related to what you just said. A candidate has a question. If the June predictive analytics exam gets canceled, will it be rescheduled? And if it won't be, why not? So I think that was related, that there are 2 of those sittings a year.
Yeah, and for that one, I think we really don't know what our options might be. One of the benefits of that exam is that it's run over a smaller period of time, but we also use up a great large number of seats at Prometric centers during those now 4 days for which we've scheduled the June PA exam. So at that time, you know, we can certainly make inquiries to see if there'll be seats available. But as with the other Prometric exams, we'll be in competition with all their other clients to try to find some openings. So we'll do our best, but it's the kind of thing we just can't make a promise about at this time.
This candidate has a question. Will the fall LTAM exam still be in November? Probably don't know that at this point, do we?
Well, is it, you know, the specific dates? And I know we've had some inquiries about whether the fall dates might get some adjustments, but our current plan is to offer the fall exams on the published schedule.
Great. Changing gears just a little bit, this candidate has a question. Will the CIA Professionalism Workshop have similar remote components that the APC would have?
You know, I can say with complete confidence that that's a question I cannot answer. So because that is run by the Canadian Institute of Actuaries, the only ones who could give you an answer that's accurate would be them.
Okay. Is the virtual meeting session temporary for APC? And will there be any delays on the official transcripts for the March CBT exams? Oh, those are 2 different questions. Sorry about that. Okay. So the first question is the virtual meeting session temporary for APC?
Our current plan is to implement as I'll say permanent, as much as things can be permanent, the virtual conducting of the associateship professionalism course going forward. We have had some folks, maybe much to our pleasure, say they would miss the opportunity to have the networking and the meeting at the APC. But we also have a lot of people who we also appreciate the fact that they wouldn't have to travel, wouldn't have to take as much time away from their job and their location. And so, you know, if the time comes when things settle down, you know, we can certainly revisit whether we would do APCs in person or have a mixture of opportunities. But for now, the plan is to go forward with only virtual APCs.
Wonderful. So going on to that the second question I asked, will there be any delays on the official transcripts for March CBT exams? So it's looking like, go ahead.
Yeah, that I don't know the answer. I don't know. I know some of my colleagues are monitoring this, but and I don't know if they can shoot me an answer or not. What was the question again, Beth?
The question was, will there be any delays on official transcripts for March CBT exams? And it's looking like the answer is no delays.
Okay, good to hear.
Okay. And the next question. For exams, I live in New York City. I have not seen an opening date for the New York City locations. What options do I have if the June New York City centers are down?
What wasn't clear to me which exam this is about.
It's exam PA. I apologize.
Okay. So for exam PA, the only options as of this point would be to schedule the exam at another location and lock in a seat in that way. Other option is to wait and see if New York City relaxes its regulations on that would allow Prometric to open their test centers.
Okay. The next question is, will the APC no longer be offered in person after August?
As I mentioned before, it is our intention going forward for the foreseeable future to continue with remote-only offerings of the APC through online learning and virtual discussions of the case studies.
Okay. And another question, and this is something you touched on a little bit earlier. Is it possible that there will be additional administrations for PA and STAM this year, just like what was done for the April FM?
So they're really two different questions. I can answer the PA question and maybe I'll get some help on the STAM question. The PA exam, unlike our other computer-based exams, does not use an item bank. We create a fresh exam every session. So the exam committees through all of this have worked hard to ensure that the June PA setting will have questions for candidates to work on. But as you also know, once that's done, we publish those exams as we do with fellowship exams, and then they're no longer able to be used again. So our ability to gear up to create new PA exam questions on a short timetable is pretty limited. We run the great risk of asking questions that aren't thoroughly vetted, could lead to problems with candidates being asked to do something which turns out to be next to impossible to do. And so we need to do a lot of checking. Prometric also needs lead time to mount those exams, again, because they're unique for each sitting. So I'd say it would be pretty unlikely that if that an additional window for PA could be open later in the year.
Wonderful, thank you. Next question is, could fall exams with written answer portions like LTAM be converted to a full multiple choice CBT exam?
Well, I guess the way the question was worded, the answer is fairly easy. Could they be converted to a full CBT exam? Yes, they could. We've obviously given that exam in a multiple choice format before, but it is not our intention to do that. We've been offering the LTAM exam as a combination multiple choice written answer exam for some time. We think it works really well, and we're going to do what we can to try to ensure that we are able to continue giving it in that mode.
Great. I think this next question might be a great one for Jill. Do you have any recommendations on how to continue following a study plan amidst all the chaos?
That is a good question. It's with the exams being offered in July, it's pressuring the time period somebody has to study for the fall exams if they wait until results come out. Some candidates know that they've definitely passed the exam, and if that's how they're feeling about it, they can definitely start studying earlier. I think that before results come out. I think there's a lot of pressures for people at work these days, and so it's really kind of an individual. What works for you, what your employers can support. It's a tricky situation, definitely.
Thank you. Okay. 1 second. Let me pull up another one. Can I sign up for a testing day outside of the testing window, but is relatively close to the registration windows in hopes of SOA potentially expanding to those days? Is that a good strategy?
If I interpreted the question correctly, I don't think that's actually possible. You can't sign up for dates for which we do not already have seats reserved at the Prometric testing centers. So as was noted earlier, when you go to the Prometric site to register for an exam, you will see the expanded dates that we've made available. Again, as time goes on, some cities may be relaxing their restrictions, and Prometric will be opening up centers in those locations that are currently closed. But you can only sign up for a date at which we already know there are seats available at the Prometric centers.
Okay. Next question is, should we expect delays in the grading of FAPE end of module assessments?
Okay, there have been some delays in getting the EOM assessments graded. As you might expect, all the stuff that's been happening threw a monkey wrench into some of our processes, but we've added to our grader resources for them, and so we expect to be catching up with FAP grading in the next few weeks.
Wonderful, that's great. Let's see what other questions we have. Are postponed exams expected to affect future sittings?
I'm not really sure what that question means, to be honest.
Maybe it means, will the fall exams be pushed back because the spring exams are being offered in July? And I think you've already answered that, Stuart, that at this point, we don't expect the written answer fall exams to be pushed back any further.
We might, be able to push the fall exams back a few days, and we're still looking into that. But it wouldn't be anywhere near the magnitude of moving, say, from April to July as we've done. And so we'd be talking about a short period of time there, particularly as those exams bump up against holidays. It creates some great challenges in getting those exams graded and also getting us back on schedule for future administrations of those fellowships exams. So we're keeping open the possibility of a slight delay in the fall exams, but it won't be very long, if at all.
Okay, great. We have another question in our chat box. It says, will there be an assessment for the APC and FAC virtual components? I think you already answered that one, Bill.
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
And again, my APC FAC experts are helping me out here, but the APC itself has never had an assessment, and so my anticipation is the virtual APC will not as well. There are always participation requirements, both attendance and an expectation that you participate in the discussions. And of course, the FAC, besides the attendance and participation requirement, also has the component where every candidate is expected to give an approximate 10-minute speech, and that completion of that speech is one of the requirements, and that will continue in the virtual version of the FAC.
Wonderful. Let's see what other questions we have. It's looking like a lot of the questions that have come in have already been answered, which is great. I'm just scrolling through to see if there are any new questions that you haven't gotten a chance to answer just yet.
I noticed one that I've seen that I don't think was asked was question about face masks at the Prometric Testing Center. So the question was, will you be allowed to? And the answer is yes, you'll be allowed, but maybe a more important answer is each test center has to comply with local rules and regulations. And keep in mind that Prometric is offering these exams in many countries, and of course within, say, the US and Canada, variation in what the rules are. So it's very important before you go to a Prometric center for your exam to make sure you know what they'll be expecting from you and when you arrive at the center regarding issues such as wearing masks.
Right. Okay, another question. For those who earn their FSA in 2020 at a virtual FAC, will there be an opportunity for an in-person FAC-like event in 2021 for recent FSAs to celebrate their achievements with their peers or their family? It's a great question.
It is, and you know, one of the things I've always been jealous of is I got my FSA so long ago. I got to celebrate it with something that came in the mail that told me I'd passed my last exam. And so I've always been jealous of all the candidates who got to celebrate with their peers and their families at a great venue. So we would obviously like to get back to that glorious event as soon as we can. And it is sad that in the meantime, some of our candidates won't get to have that experience. But we are aware that there will be a demand for that sort of thing, and we will be researching ways to celebrate those new fellows who got their fellowship during this period back when the time comes when we can actually get together and have a proper celebration.
Wonderful. That's great. Okay, let's see what else has come in. One of the questions is there a listing of testing centers with Prometric that are not able to operate as usual based on the current COVID-19 requirements? Do we have anything like that?
You know, I don't know. Again, I'm hoping one of my colleagues who is very close to that issue. We are in, as Beth mentioned, in constant communication with them. But I don't know if they've published a list of what's open and what's closed, so candidates can easily find out where they might be able to go to try and take a test.
Okay.
So I'll see if something comes by here for me that helps me out with that question.
Oh, I am seeing the education team is saying there is a list on the Prometric website of both open and closed centers right now.
Okay, excellent.
All right. I did see a question come in a little bit earlier that somebody is changing countries and they are wondering if they will be able to reschedule their exams. Do we know if they're changing countries, they'll be able to do that?
So again, Beth, is this someone who's already registered and now wants
Yes.
to change location? Yeah, I believe I did see the answer for that one go by, and I do believe that in that case, you have to work through a SOA customer service.
Okay, great. So I see another question. When will the exam admission tickets be issued and test centers confirmed for the July setting? Do we know?
I believe that's in mid-June. And I want to apologize. I'm getting help on some of these answers, and I've got a long scroll box that I'm trying to find the answer to this particular question on.
Yep, it's looking like you're right. Mid-June is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, let's see. Additional questions. It says, what will the virtual APC consist of? Will there be assignments? And if so, how many? Are they timed like the FAPE modules?
So the remote APC will have both an e-learning module and virtual discussion sessions. The e-learning will be relatively short courses that we expect should take about 2 weeks. The virtual session will be around 2 hours in length.
Wonderful, thank you. Let's see, any other questions that we have right now? Here's one. Do you recommend the VEE credit given through remote learning offered by coaching actuaries?
Okay, so we don't make recommendations of good or bad. As the person who asked the question must already know, Coaching Actuaries is among one of the many providers of remote learning for VEE that are accredited by the SOA and have been granted the ability to award VE credit for candidates who are successful in their courses. But we do not make judgments about whether one provider of such courses is better than another provider. We just ensure that all of them meet the standards set by the VEE Administration Committee.
Okay, great. Another question from a candidate. For candidates who are planning to complete the FAPE final assessment while their employer is keeping employees working from home, will there be an option for their supervisor to watch them download and upload their assessments virtually via screen share?
Yes, that option will be available.
Great, wonderful. Let's see what other questions we might have. Sorry for the pause here. I'm just scrolling through what we've already talked about. Looks like you've covered a lot of these questions, Stuart, which great job.
Thank you.
Jill, did you have any thoughts you wanted to include?
Well, we appreciate everybody tuning in today. If questions come up, you know, in the next period of time, you can go ahead and contact the SOA, and we can continue to try and provide answers.
Okay, great. Oh, I do have one more question. If we received our ASA in March or April, how long should we anticipate waiting until we receive the physical certificate?
Okay, it looks like the timing on that is about 6 weeks.
Wonderful. Okay. All right, I think that's going to be it for the questions then today.
Thank you, Stuart, for your insight and updates on the exams today. And a big thank you to the candidates who took the time today to watch and hear how the SOA's education team is responding to the COVID-19 pandemic. Please remember to regularly check the candidate page on SOA.org or the SOA COVID-19 page for updates. We also post regular updates on our SOA YouTube channel. We are here to help and support you. If you have any questions on exam registration or timing, please reach out.
And if you did not have your questions answered, we weren't able to get up to everything today, please consider emailing candidate@soa.org, and we will try and get to all the other questions that you might not have gotten answered. But thank you otherwise. Thank you, Jill, and thank you, Stuart. This concludes the virtual town hall. You will receive a quick survey via email to provide us feedback on the content and your experience with the town hall. Have a great day.